Joining us now, Congressman Rob Wittman, 1st District, Republican, Virginia. That's Fredericksburg area through the Northern Neck. And he's with us now. Rob Wittman, great to have you, man.
Good morning, John. Great to be back with you.
Hey, thank you. Wow, let's go to the House and some of the business there and start with the stimulus package. Trump wants, and Mnuchin, we had Ben Klein on the other day talking about this. They want $1.3 trillion, and the Democrats and Pelosi want $2 trillion something. They're $1 trillion apart. That's a lot of money to be apart. It's not like they're $1 billion apart. They're $1 trillion apart. But Mnuchin wanting additional money for PPP to give smaller businesses an opportunity to tap into that again. They also want another mail-out payment to people. They also want to continue with the federal unemployment. But Pelosi putting in another $1 trillion in there for the post office and bailing out cities and stuff. What's the deal here?
Well, as you know, John, this HEROES Act passed out of the House, and believe it or not, 14 Democrats voted against it. That's a $3 trillion bill, just full of pork barrel spending, all kinds of things unrelated. So that's essentially, what Pelosi is advocating for. Now she's come back to this $2 trillion spot. The bottom line is remember, there's still dollars left from the CARES Act. There's about $180 billion left in the CARES Act. Let's look about how we properly allow that to be used, and then let's look at the things that we need to do that help people either directly, like businesses and PPP, or let's make sure, too, that if we are going to spend this money, and remember, if we do, this is going to be additional debt for the nation. These dollars should be, I believe, John, investments. In other words, the nation should be getting something back for that. I want to make sure we're helping businesses. It's great to put money in people's pockets, but remember, it's money that we've got to borrow to give to them. But there's also a number of other needs out there. And as I've talked to folks across the district, they say, listen, I want to make sure that businesses survive. I want to make sure that families can just, meet their basic obligations. But they also want to see that if the nation is spending dollars and going in debt to do that, which is exactly what this is there should be something tangible in return. So shouldn't we be doing things like building broadband? Shouldn't we be doing things like building roads? Those sorts of things. And I understand the predicament that localities are in, but I would believe in the discussion there we ought to be talking about how do we make sure that we are not only keeping businesses open but also making other investments in the nation where there's actually something tangible in return there.
Well, let's just get to the debt for a minute. Then we got some other things to go to. We're with Congressman Rob Wittman, Republican, 1st District, Virginia. Right now, our deficit projected fiscal 20, $3.3 trillion. That's 16% in 1 year, 16% of our gross domestic product. This is on a par with our deficit percentage-wise GDP in 1945. Last year of the war, the Second World War that we had to finance on a more global basis or bigger basis, we're going to end 2020 with total debt held by U.S. citizens of 98% of GDP. And if we continue down the same path in 2021, our debt will be over what we produce in GDP. That's not a good sign. So to your point, I mean, obviously we have to get through this pandemic, and there is going to be something spent, whether it's 1.3 or 2.3. But at some point, you guys have got to deal with this level of debt when the debt payment becomes bigger than what we produce as a country. Doesn't that put you in the danger zone?
Oh, it does, John. It's a fiscal reality that you cannot continue to spend more than what you bring in, and especially as we see budgets year after year after year that are nowhere close to being balanced, and then you have this broken system where this past year you don't even adopt a budget, and then when there is even an attempt to adopt a budget, it's late, and then you don't get appropriations bills done on time, and then you manage by these continuing resolutions.
Same old story.
Yeah, which says we're going to spend at the same level. So it's just a continual kicking of the can down the road. And you're exactly right. The day is going to come much sooner than later to where the nation, the Congress, is going to be faced with having to make some really tough decisions on what it does with its finances. And none of those are going to be good scenarios. The longer you put it off, the more you deficit spend. And listen, I understand where we are with COVID-19 and trying to keep this economy on the upswing. But at some point, you got to pay the bill, and we have to be very, very mindful of that. And that means, some very, very tough decisions going forward. And if you keep putting it off, when you do have to do it out of necessity,
right?
Boy, the choices are going to be really, really tough.
Well, they're getting tougher now. John Fredericks Radio Network, we're with Congressman Rob Wittman, Republican, 1st District, Virginia. I'm going to get to the mayor in a moment of D.C., where we both are. But I want to start with, I hate to put you in this position, but I got to ask you about this Nancy Pelosi hairdo thing. Your speaker getting caught on camera, basically doing the let them eat cake deal, doesn't really care about her constituents who can't go inside to get their hair done, but she does, no mask on. Then she's caught on camera. Then she blames the security camera and the owner of the place, saying that she was set up. How was she set up? Nobody asked her to go in there. She went in there. She didn't have a mask on. She's doing exactly what that the district that she's in, the mayor there, told people they can't do, but she can do it. And she's caught red-handed, and then she blames the person that had the camera there. What's the? I mean, come on, Congressman, you got to be kidding me.
It is outrageous, and it's what makes people, fire red mad at Congress when they see members of Congress believing that they should be treated differently than the citizens they represent, which is absolutely not the way it should be, John. Every member of Congress should be following the exact same rules as their constituents are required to follow. There shouldn't be any special treatment. And in this instance, where there was special treatment, it's just not right. And especially when you're out there, making a point and pointing fingers at other people that aren't wearing masks and casting aspersions there, and then you don't wear it, and somehow it's okay if you don't wear it, or it's somebody else's fault if you don't wear it. I mean, that's all about personal responsibility and holding yourself to the same standard. Anybody in elected office absolutely must hold himself to the same standard that is being held for the people that they represent. I mean, that's just common sense and bottom line. And I don't blame folks for being just mad as fire when they see members of Congress, having this different treatment. That's not the way our system is supposed to operate. And Speaker Pelosi should set the example. She shouldn't be complaining and saying, "Oh, I got set up." It should be, "No, you're right. I should set the example. This is wrong." She's
such a hypocrite. And then, rather than just apologizing and say, "Yeah, I exercised bad judgment in doing that," and move on. I mean, it happens. She said she was set up. Like, nobody asked her to go in there to get her haircut. How was she set up? It was a security camera. And the owner of the salon is pissed because she's like, well, wait a minute. I can't even open my business up. I can't even pay my rent. I can't make an income. You're shutting me down. But then you can go in with one of my, people that rent out the salon booths. They can go in there, get a big tip from you, whatever, good for them. But I can't open my business. That's why the owner released the videotape. The hypocrisy of it is beyond the pale. But they don't even care. It's like, hey, I got set up. I'm not going to apologize. Screw you. Unbelievable.
I know it's that double standard, and that not being accountable. I mean, every person in elected office needs to be accountable directly to the people they represent, and they should absolutely be held to the same standard as the people they represent. Period. That's the way our system is supposed to work, and that's the way it should work.
Insane. Rob Wittman with us, Congressman, Republican, 1st District, Virginia. Okay, let's get to Mayor of Washington. I cannot believe that Mayor Browser even released this recommendation. I still can't believe it. She published a plan that recommends potentially removing, get this, from D.C., the Washington Monument, the Christopher Columbus statue, the Andrew Jackson statue, the Jefferson Memorial, among other ludicrous recommendations. I mean, and she releases this, Mayor Browser does, and repeats the same left-wing whack narrative that is used to incite these riots. When you got this, what was your reaction?
Well, John, when I got this, I had to just stop for a moment because I thought, well, this has got to be an article from The Onion or Babylon Bee or
Right.
one of those publications.
Right.
I thought this is just so out there. As you said, it's absolutely ludicrous. And this is nothing short of a far-left radical, disconnected from reality. The only thing I can say is a publicity stunt. Or at worst, it's an attempt to absolutely demolish our nation's history and erase the names of our nation's founders. As you said, the plan says potentially removing, relocating, or contextualizing the Washington Monument, as you said, the Jefferson Memorial, George Mason Memorial, another great Virginian, the Benjamin Franklin statue, Alexander Graham Bell,
Oh, yes.
Francis Scott Key. I mean, the list goes on.
Francis Scott Key.
Yeah, and you go, really?
Oh, my goodness.
Listen, but John, I think they might have missed one. Guess who's not there?
Who?
FDR. So I mean, you look at it and you just believe that you've woken up in an alternate reality. It's simply untenable, and it flies in the face of the great work that these men and women did in establishing our nation and our freedoms. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And to see this and to even think that this was recommended is beyond the pale. And think about this. This was done in a 5-week period. I think there were like 275 interactions with that. Like 2,300 responses were received in this public comment period. And remember, these are statues that represent the nation. The D.C. is the nation's capital. So here you are with this small group making these decisions with very, very little input that impacts 330 million Americans. And to even contemplate this is just beyond the pale. I mean, I just can't fathom it. And that seems to be the way that things are going these days, where there's just this fast track to say we are going to, look at ways to remove our nation's history. Now, listen, I understand the debate back and forth about Confederate generals and the appropriateness of naming and statues, and there's a lot of back and forth there too. And listen, we can have that debate, but now to bring in these other individuals that represent this nation's history and this nation's founding, I just don't know where all this is leading.
The fact of the matter is, she published it. Like that's what I couldn't believe. I mean, it's one thing. Okay, we're in the middle of some strife. You got riots there, so you put this thing together. You look at their recommendations, and you call the head guy up and you say, "Look, I can't even publish this. I mean, this is so ridiculous. I can't even be a part of this. Why don't we go back to square one and find some other things that we can do? But I just can't deal with it." But she publishes it like, we're going to take this under serious consideration. First of all, she shouldn't even have that power. These are federal things. Unbelievable. But it shows you where they are. It shows you where they are right now. And, insane.
And John, and she said, it wasn't just here's the report. It's like, I look forward to pursuing the recommendations in this report. And I'm like, really? Unbelievable. And then when they received the backlash, all of a sudden now they've taken it down. But it's still out there, and it's still her words and saying she looks forward to pursuing the recommendations in the report. It's just unbelievable.
Sick. All right, I've got one of your admirers and constituents on the line. Elizabeth with us wants to say voice her support for Rob Wittman. Elizabeth, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you, John Fredericks. Appreciate it. I live in the 1st District, and I want everyone here to know that we need to get behind Rob Wittman. The person opposing him, Qasim Rashid, is the farthest of the far left on his policies. Think the farthest left on health care, immigration, foreign policy, Green New Deal, statues, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the whole thing. That's what you will have, and we need to get behind Rob Wittman, and I'm behind him 100%.
There you go, Elizabeth. Thank you. So, Congressman Wittman, one of your admirers, what do you think?
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I really appreciate your support. And yes, there is a significant difference, a a tremendous difference between myself and my opponent. I mean, we are both on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum, and I could go on and on about that, but I encourage folks to look at where we stand and look at where my opponent stands. I don't think that there is a clear distinction between two individuals in any congressional race across the United States.
John Fredericks Radio Network with Congressman 1st District Republican Rob Wittman. In the House, there's a battle coming up. I just want you to elaborate here a little bit. We got a major battle coming up between Eliot Engel and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, following a notice by the House Foreign Affairs Committee to begin contempt proceedings against Pompeo. Why is Engel starting contempt proceedings? What does Engel want?
I'm not sure. I think it's a lot of posturing back and forth between Chairman Engel and Secretary Pompeo. I think that Secretary Pompeo has been very reasonable in what he has offered, and as you know, many times there's a back and forth. There's an ask that many times is well beyond the scope of what the committee's actually seeking, and then the administration provides what they believe is the appropriate information. So I think this is a back and forth, but it's certainly heightened in its intensity back and forth between the secretary and the chairman there. So we'll see where it goes, but I'm not certain exactly what the chairman is trying to get at, other than in this political climate there certainly is a lot of high stakes political back and forth, and I think that's what this is.
As a Republican, do you feel that Secretary Pompeo was in contempt? Would you like to see him testify or not?
No, listen, I think the secretary has been very thoughtful and reasonable about the things that he's provided to the committee and has been accommodating. And no, I don't think that he should be held in contempt. I think it's if there's a disagreement between the chairman and the secretary, there should be an opportunity to be able to work that out and make sure that there's a reasonable accommodation on both sides. This appears as though there's not any will on the part of the chairman to say, yes, where you are in being willing to testify and the information that you're willing to provide is actually reasonable. And if you can't reach that reasonable place, and then it gets to a confrontation, that's absolutely unfortunate. But I think a lot of it just is the politics of where we are today.
John Fredericks Radio Network. We're out of time with Rob Wittman. When I get back, though, Rob, after you're off the air, I'm going to talk about AOC, who really is the reason that your colleague Joe Kennedy doesn't get to move up the street. Now he's out of Congress. AOC backing Markey, stunning victory there, and she's now the ideological leader of the Democratic Party, and she's going to beat Chuck Schumer in 2022, my prediction. Rob Wittman, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much, John. Appreciate the opportunity.
John Fredericks Radio Network.